I'm Brenda Edwards. I live on Chester Court in PLG, and I've been in this house for about 23 years, but I've been in PLG for maybe a little over 30 years. And, I do love the neighborhood, even its challenges, and I've just found myself getting active in the neighborhood over the past, 10 years or so, and working at the high school and junior high schools in the neighborhood. When I moved here, a beautiful neighborhood, a beautiful block. I was very attracted to the historical homes, but it may have started to be in transition, maybe a little after I moved in, but there were some problems, there were some issues during that time, with gun violence, gang activity, drugs, all the things that happen in underserved neighborhoods. This is exactly what happens when you just don't have enough funding and caring, let's be honest, about what is going on with the people in the neighborhood. And it's an unfortunate symptom of racism and poverty. Then things begin to change slowly. The gentrification, having people come in with more money and more power. And so things begin to change, and we saw more development, oversized development, buildings going up that most people in the community could not afford, and we feared displacement. That people would be harassed to move from their apartments, and the older apartments that weren't succumbing to development, those apartments, the rents were raising, and people were asked to leave, and also the businesses, those rents started to rise, and so businesses would have to leave or find some way to pay the exuberant rents. And so a group of us became active in the neighborhood to learn more about it, to contact our local politicians, to form groups and to help organize tenants, just to organize the neighborhood so that we can all be educated on how we could become proactive in helping ourselves, more like a grassroots, hands-on approach. And that is the way that I developed a lot of close relationships, in the neighborhood. I had retired in 2010 as an educator at Erasmus. And so I had a lot of time to look around the neighborhood and walk around and see what was going on. And another friend of mine, as a matter of fact, Cheryl Sealy, our children were friends, they went to school together. We happened to meet up at a yoga studio on Midwood. And that was a sign right there. I mean, I love that studio, and unfortunately the wonderful woman who ran it, she just left the neighborhood. But that was a sign that things are changing. And another sign was that we were able to meet up in a coffee shop, one of the cafes. That's not something that we had in the neighborhood, and not that I have anything against coffee shops. Sometimes I would walk across the park into Park Slope, and I'd sit for hours in coffee shops. But this was new to our neighborhood, and obviously a reaction to gentrification, people coming into the neighborhood and who enjoyed this type of lifestyle. And that was 2010, when I retired. So that's when I noticed it. I would say Flatbush has its own unique flavor. Literally, you know. I enjoy the Caribbean influence in the neighborhood, and now with other established cuisines, Italian or whatever, I enjoy those too. But it's like going to the islands without having to go to the islands, you know. So I do enjoy that aspect of it. I'm not from the Caribbean, but the funny thing is, I would say 90% of my students at Erasmus were from the Caribbean, and they kept asking me, you know, where I was from, and they just did not understand that I was not from the Caribbean. And then sometime I used my late husband's last name, who was from West Africa, and then they said, oh, so you're from Africa. So like, kids, we're all from Africa. But that was always funny, you know, trying to explain to them that, you know, I was born here, my parents were born here, my grandparents, and so forth and so on, which gets into which allowed me to be able to teach them about the history, you know, of Black folks, you know, in this country and across the diaspora, because many of them just were not aware of just how that worked and how we are all connected. And when students would have these little challenges between them about who's from which island, and then I would remind them that we have talked about and read about that basically we are all one. Yes, love your distinct culture, but you know, we are all one. We talked about this already, and maybe we should do some more studying on that. Convenient. I would walk to work. You know, back then I was in much better shape, and so and that was I think it was like a meditation, because I do like to walk, and so I would walk up Flatbush to the school, and then I would walk home down Bedford, which is quieter. So you know, that was that was the best thing about it. And also I was more aware of the surroundings and what the kids were seeing in their neighborhood, because I'm part of the neighborhood. It's not like I'm driving in from the suburbs or whatever, and then I leave and I'm not quite aware of the whole flavor of the neighborhood. Of course, teachers who did not live close were able to get involved with the students and care for the students and do a good job at teaching. But there's a difference when you're here in the neighborhood 24/7. You know, sometimes you don't realize the influence you have on students. I've run into students who told me they became a teacher and that I had influenced them. And one student, I was surprised because it was probably my first year that I was teaching, and she was one of the students, and I felt like I just don't know what I'm doing. I'm failing these kids. And a matter of fact, I started to apologize. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. You know, you were like one of my first class, and I don't think I really knew what I was doing. She says, I don't understand why you would say that. I became a teacher because of you. So, you know, those are things that you hold on to, you know. And a lot of the students had challenges and difficulties. One of the issues that I had with the school, with Erasmus, our neighborhood schools, is that the schools are filled with students who have, we like to say, challenges with not enough resources. And these schools almost become dumping grounds for students who need so much more than the school can provide. and then schools get a bad reputation as a result. I was always delighted to see the students who are able to thrive, and their caring, of their families, and students who maybe didn't have the greatest connection with their families, how other students would help them, and teachers would, really connect with these students. So, that was a good thing. But it was tough. There is an abundance of culture here. It's very rich cultures. There's so many people that are artists. There's so many people that just keep the community going, because there's such a rich, it's like we're wealthy, maybe not so much in terms of finances, but just the spirit, there's a wonderful spirit here. So, yeah. I would say, I used to say Prospect Park, Botanic Garden, those kinds of things, but as time went on, as I became more active in the neighborhood, it's definitely the people. Like a lot of times, this is an old house, it's over 110 years old, and things are always breaking down, and I'm like, I gotta sell this house. And it's not just the house. It's like, where would I go? As I said, I'm not from the Caribbean. I'm not going back home. I'm home already. And then I'm like, I would miss my friends. I would miss, my colleagues. We work together on so many efforts in the community. What would I do? I'm, totally grounded and connected, to the people.
And you're part of this community.
Yeah, I feel I feel that I am, good and the bad. A specific desire is that we would be more involved with our youth, that we would see the positive aspects instead of defining young people by a few kids that may be in gangs, and decide that all the kids are in gangs, all the kids are bad, and they can't change. Pouring more time and effort and money into resources that would distract, youth from doing things that are harmful to them and others. Building up our schools, making sure that we understand how much power we have if we come together and notify our local politicians that we're not going away and we're not backing down, and that they are, they have to be our voice. We are a voice, but they have to be, since they were voted in, that they have to work on, the schools, the youth, the sanitation, that kind of thing, and also to pay attention to, mental illness, talk about what causes it, again, racism and poverty. And so these are the things that I would like to see change, and that there's more equity, for everyone in the neighborhood. Well, food and shelter, that seems like it would be a no-brainer, but evidently the way our system works, it's not. You have to go through so many channels for people to have food, fresh food, and housing. Too many people are homeless. They're on the streets. They're living in shelters, and some of the buildings in the neighborhood have taken advantage of that, by partnering with organizations or the city to have very bad temporary housing instead of assisting people in having permanent housing and food.